shorter than this one. Right? So as you move up the scale of academia in terms of educational preparation, your attire changes and the colors change. If you are in education, it's blue, in science, the velvet is yellow, and every discipline, every field of study has its own color. So that's what you're aiming for. You're aiming for that degree that gives you that one foot in the door, and the only way you can go is up. It's not possible to cover all of Bennett's history in the time I have allocated, but just know that you are on an adventure to become one of the 6,000 plus graduates of this institution. We're all over the place. We're all over the world. I'm faced with a tremendous challenge this afternoon, and that is to compress 146 years of history into approximately 27 minutes. The only way I can do that is at warp speed, and with this octogenarian body, warp speed would tear me up, so I'm not even going to try it. For your information, I think you have received a Bennett Heritage trivia sheet, and you've also received the Bennett B's. So some of the things, someone asked me, would you have to write? I'm suggesting that if there's something that you need to add an additional notation to, you basically have the important dates and what have you in your hand. 146 years ago, in 1873, Bennett College began as a small school for recently emancipated slaves. So let's begin that journey, and we're going to enter through the Bearden Gates. Bennett College was founded in the basement of the church that many of you attended, the old church, not the new one with the beautiful stained glass windows and the round altar, but it was founded in the basement, an unplastered basement of the old Warnersville Methodist Episcopal Church South. And in the corner you see a picture of what we would call then the newly rebuilt Warnersville Church, which by that time was called St. Matthew's. And in this picture you see the old and the new. A newspaper article said a group of citizens want to establish a school for the newly emancipated slaves so that they can read and write and become functioning citizens of this community. That article appeared in the Greensboro paper on a Tuesday. They had a meeting on a Wednesday or a Thursday night, and by the weekend, the school was established in that smelly basement of that old Warnersville Methodist Episcopal Church. And you see a picture of students who had gathered there, and the young man is a divinity student, because back then the key professions were preaching and teaching, because we were in the midst of an agrarian economy. Everybody farmed and the like, and there were a few professions such as brick masons and the like. But I understand that young man walked 6 miles to the school in the basement of that church and 6 miles back every day with his celluloid collar and his books to get an education. A gentleman by the name of Lyman Bennett heard about this fledgling school, and he said, I've got to go down there in North Carolina and see that school. Now, Lyman Bennett was a manufacturer of shirt collars. Back in the day, those days, the men wore celluloid collars. So he received his monies and his income from the factory that produced these collars and other attire for men of that period in time. And he had heard about this school through his connections with the Methodist Church. So he came down to check it out for himself, and he was so impressed with the initiatives that the slaves, the newly freed slaves, had undertaken to build a school so they could receive an education. And he said, well, you know, You all have put your pennies together. Now I'm going to add more pennies to the pot. So Lyman Bennett gave what then was a large amount of money, $10,000, so they could move out of that smelly basement into a building somewhere. So the slaves, the emancipated slaves and the community people and the Freedmen's Aid Society pitched in, and they got enough money to buy the initial plot of ground that this college is on today. And those of you who walk the campus, behind the chapel and behind that huge air conditioning unit, you will see 2 brick pillars. That was the original entrance to the college. And there is a Latin phrase on those pillars, which translates into perseverance conquers all. Think what an impression that made on those students. Perseverance conquers all. In other words, you keep on plugging and plugging and plugging, and you'll make it. The college grew. It was co-ed, and the students ranged from ages to, I would say, 7 or 8, up until if they could get there and they could walk, they were here. They were in that school. So they moved from the basement to the campus, and of course, the first building was named Bennett Hall, named after the largest benefactor. And the other building was Carolina Hall. Carolina Hall burned down. And believe it or not, Bennett had the first co-ed living in the history of education, because they had to do something with the students who were living on in Carolina Hall. So the solution was put the girls on the first floor, the faculty in the middle, and the boys on top. So we had co-ed living. The college grew and served a multitude of people. Everybody in this town knew about Bennett College. The symbols of the college are the magnolia, the chapel spire, and the bell. Now let me tell you about the bell. That 250-pound bronze bell over between the chapel and Steel Hall will be 141 years old this coming December. Now, how did we get that bell? Lyman Bennett said, you can't have a school named after me and that school not have a bell. What school in that day and age did not have a bell? So Lyman Bennett set out on this fundraising campaign to raise money to buy a bell for the school that bore his name. Unfortunately, while he was on that journey, he contracted pneumonia and died. So he never saw the bell. But his friends said, if he has that much invested, we're going to finish. So his friends finished fundraising, and the 250-pound bell that is in that bell tower is the outcome. And on the slip of the trivia sheet you have the inscription that is on that bell. And it talks about providing liberty to the captives. And when you are educated, then you will be liberated, and you will no longer be a captive. So when you have a moment, look at that scripture or look it up in your Bible, the scripture that's our co-ed institution continues. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you will not be able to see the magnolia because they will not be open by the time school is over. My graduation was the 31st of May in '54. So the magnolia were blooming. Those are those huge trees between the chapel and going towards the dining hall. Those great big trees that the squirrels run up and down. These little bitty berries Okay. And the whole campus is permeated with this fragrance in the summer. Now, you need to know why the magnolia is so important. Number one, the magnolia is beautiful all year round. And the magnolia is an example of simplistic beauty. It's beautiful when it's green. It's beautiful when it's green with red berries. And it's beautiful when it has these blossoms. There is beauty in simplicity. Beauty in simplicity. The chapel has always been an important part of Bennett College. The original chapel was a wooden building that, in order to reflect the light, they took pie pans and put them underneath the lights to reflect the light. And you sat on folding chairs that if you didn't sit right, your derriere got pinched. But they had chapel every day. They came together as a group. And then in 1941, due to the philanthropic efforts of Mrs. Pfeiffer, we got our new chapel. But the name Carrie Barge didn't go away because we have a dormitory named what? Barge Hall. The bell, I've already mentioned. We had the only high school on this campus for people of color, for Negroes. The only one in this area. That was the level of secondary education that they could receive at that time. And we kept that until 1929 when James B. Dudley High School was built. So Bennett discontinued its high school program. And Dudley High School, which is still standing today, and I'm a Panther, I finished Dudley, that took the place of the high school we had on this campus that had upwards to about 15 high school students. These are some scenes from back in the day. And if you were to get a close-up of that group picture, you'd see the wide variety of ages represented. Now, buildings began to go up on campus. And I think you know the oldest buildings on campus. If you're walking around, look at the cornerstones, and you will see the old buildings on campus: Jones Hall, the administration building, Race building, what is now the art gallery, Steele Hall, and the oldest building on this campus is that big white house across the street. That used to be the president's home, and it was built in 1915, and it is still standing, and it is the alumni house, A-E, alumni house. All right. Now, Kent Hall was torn down in the mid-'80s. That date is incorrect. It was torn down in the mid-'80s. It was between Holgate Library and Shell Hall. That's where Kent Hall sat. And the president's home was where Myrna Hall is now, which I believe is an academic building. And I grew up on this campus, and one of my favorite memories is watching them move the president's home from where Myrna Hall is all the way across Darrell Street next to the new president's home. And they did it on telephone poles being pulled with ropes and tractors. And they moved it from where Myrna Hall is now all the way over. I sat there mesmerized looking at all these, well, nowadays we call them John Deeres, but all those little chug-chug tractors moving that house from Myrna Hall all the way across the street. But it is our oldest structure on this campus. In 1926, the women's division of the Methodist Church had heard a lot about the educational needs for women. And they said, okay, let's do this. Bennett College is growing. Let's make Bennett College an educational endeavor and experiment in education for women of color. So now you know Bennett's co-ed, It's co-ed. We had a baseball team. We had a football team all dogged out in their leather. They wouldn't last 5 minutes in the NFL today. But we had, with the fellas, you had to have those teams, and that's what they had back in the day. So at the beginning of the school year, 1926, we then became a school for women. So we had to get a special president. We had to get a special person to be the president. And the president that was chosen was David Dallas Jones. No, he wasn't white. Okay? He was born right here in Greensboro, over in the community called Warnersville, and you've heard that name before because it was Warnersville Methodist Episcopal Church, in the community of Warnersville. And he was born in that community and rose to great heights in academic and in community and public service. And we used to be mesmerized in chapel because he would sit on the top step of the chapel and give us, I would say, food for thought and the necessary ingredients for living. And I would sit there and watch his Phi Beta Kappa Key go back and forth, back and forth. A dynamic man. His mother was a school teacher and his father was a shoemaker. And they saw to it that he got an education. So in 1926, David Dallas Jones, whom we affectionately call Prexy, and his wife, Mrs. Susie Jones, came to Bennett. And when they set foot on this campus, there were 4 raggedy buildings, fields of corn and turnips, a dilapidated high school that was phasing out because Dudley was being built, and 10 female students. 10 female students. That's all they found. And President David Dallas Jones and his wife set out on a mission to build this college and to establish a foundation that has endured to this day. During the Jones years, many celebrities and people came to this campus, and in the lower left, you see a big lady. That is Eleanor Roosevelt. And if you know anything about history, you remember Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal and all of that. She heard from her good buddy, Mary McLeod Bethune, that there was a college in North Carolina that she needed to visit, and she did. Of course, you know, she was an enterprising lady. Remember, she went down to Tuskegee and flew with the airmen to prove that blacks could fly. Those 4 women were the first graduates of Bennett College. The first graduating class in 1930 were these 4 women. And just recently, the last one died. Excuse me. We had chapel back in the day 5 days a week. We had Sunday Vesper at 4, hat, pocketbooks, and gloves. And I won't count how many times, running late, we had our pajamas rolled up underneath our coats, and we strutted in and sat down because we had to be in our seats before the tone of the bell vanished from the air, or else you got a cut. Yeah, you did. What did that teach? It taught us to be on time. Bennett bells were never late for anything. Now, if you weren't in that seat in your class before the tone of the bell rang 10 minutes before the hour and on the hour. And on the hour, when class was to start, if you weren't in your seat, you were marked absent. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, you see all those books on the steps? We were not allowed to take anything in that chapel but ourselves. And the last time I made a presentation in chapel, I thought there were lightning bugs all over the audience. All I kept seeing was blue and white and going like, Oh, electronics. Okay. But we weren't allowed to take anything in. And let me tell you, not a book was ever stolen. When it rained, we brought our books on the inside in the foyer. But that allowed us to pay rapt attention to what was going on. Mondays and Fridays was formal chapel. Tuesday was current events. Wednesday was music appreciation. I learned opera while I was here at Bennett, so that when I got out in the world, I could sit and carry out the correct decorum in a concert. I didn't clap at the wrong place. Woo, 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 woo. You go, girl. I knew when to hold it and when to fold it. Okay? I learned that here at Bennett. I learned the culture and the appropriate behavior. Because many times, that's how people either get a job or lose a job. A lot of interviews are conducted over lunch or dinner. And they look at you and they watch how you handle yourself in that situation. But Bennett taught me how to present myself in public. President Jones died in 1956, and Dr. Willa Beatrice Player became our first female president. And we used to say she walked softly, but she carried a big stick. Poised, appropriate, graceful, brilliant. And she picked up where President Jones left off. When President Jones came, there were 4 rickety buildings, cornfields, and turnips. When he died, the basic format that you see on that quad is what he left. Every building that went up between 1926 and 1956 was because Prexy put the quartet in the back of his Chrysler and drove them to conferences and meetings. The quartet sang, Prexy cried, and passed the hat. Got the money, brought it back, and Bennett kept going right on. On one of those trips, he met a very important lady. Her name was Annie Myrna Pfeiffer. And how many buildings on this campus do you see Pfeiffer or Myrna? You walk around. She was very gracious. She and her husband were in pharmaceuticals and cosmetics. And you know cosmetics. Money, 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 money. Okay. So we knew when she was coming. This place was spit and polished. I mean, the grass was cut. The place was clean. Because then, Bennett students did all the work. It was called beauty work. We lived here, and we took care of this place. We had no maids, no housekeepers. We waited tables in the dining hall. We ran the dishwasher. We did all of that on 6-week rotations. We cleaned the bathrooms. Somebody forgot. We cleaned the bathrooms. We vacuumed, because that's where we lived. That's where we lived, and we took care of our rooms. Bennett launched out on this social justice type of venue. But it wasn't during the player years that it began. It began in 1937. President Jones's daughter initiated a strike against one of the movie theaters downtown that was showing Tobacco Road and showed people of color in a negative light. So the picture over on this end is that group in 1937, which was President Jones's daughter's class, picketing the movies. And I want you to know that they changed it. Bennett Bells have been walking and picketing and standing up for social justice from way back. We just didn't start this. We stand up for what we believe is right and what is appropriate. During the Jones and Player years, we began to have more international students coming to Bennett. And at commencement, when an international student graduates, she gives her flag, the flag of her country, to the college during commencement. And at commencement, all the flags of students from all of the countries that have been represented in graduating classes are flown at that time. When Dr. Player took a position with the U.S. Office of Education, Isaac H. Miller and his family came to this campus. And during the Miller years, from 66 to 87, Bennett College took a leap, a giant leap into the 21st century. It was during that time that Bennett got his first computer. That thing was huge. It took up a room in the basement of the science building. The server alone was magnanimous. They had to have fans to cool it down. It was big. And if you get close enough to that picture, you'll see those antiquated computers. And along with this, there was this resurgence of science. And President Jones's daughter, Frances Jones Bonner, was the first graduate to become a physician. And there are other distinguished graduates in the fields of medicine that you will learn about. Oh, and with that computerized, the advent of computers, we had 2 days of class and 1 day on the computer for math and English. Everybody was becoming computer literate. But a lot of other things were going on during the Miller years. We got sororities. And everybody was saying, oh, that's going to kill the Bennett spirit. That's going to kill the sisterhood. No, it didn't. No, it hasn't. We're just as strong as ever. And this past year, one of the organizations, I think it was the Deltas, celebrated their 50th year. In addition to that, under Dr. Miller's insistence, we developed what was called a consortium. And that was fun. Bells could take classes at A&T, and A&T fellows could take classes at Bennett. And not only could they take classes there, we could go to High Point University, we could go to UNCG, we could go to Greensboro College, and we still do. All you have to do is to get on that bus called HEAT and take classes at any of the institutions in Greensboro. Dr. Miller put that in place. It was called a consortium. You can't get a class here at Bennett, you can catch it at T. And I was talking to a fellow the other day, and he said, Miss Scarlett, I needed a biology class, and he said the only one I could get into was at Bennett. He said, you should have seen me spit and polish and straighten it up so I could go be. He said, I was the only male in that class. I said, did you get a good grade? He said, yes, ma'am, I got an A. But the Bennett Bells took advantage of that. They were in the band. They were majorettes. You know, put a crack in the door and we'll go through it. We did. When Dr. Miller left, we had the distinguished second female president, Dr. Gloria Randall Scott. Now, I don't know how many of you were Girl Scouts, but Dr. Scott was the first African-American president of Girl Scouts USA. And when she came, we got our first campus Girl Scout troop, of which I was the leader. And we did flag ceremonies for the Rotary here in Greensboro and for all ceremonial events here on campus. Another advantage of this consortium and being able to take courses on other campuses, we had students who enrolled in the ROTC program at A&T, and when they finished the A&T's ROTC program, at commencement, they were pinned by their parents with their lieutenant bars. And in this, you will see 4 young ladies who are being commissioned in the United States Army. So cross-registration and being able to go to other colleges has its advantages. Also, this particular year, this picture was taken, all 4 of the first graduates of Bennett College came back for their reunion. And they're the ladies in the white dresses that you see. And we also got the Black Madonna that is hanging in the chapel by Eva Hamlin Miller, who was the first art teacher here at Bennett College. Then we had a transition year. We had 2 presidents in 1 year. One had a hiccup and that didn't go well, so we got another one. And you know, there's an expression that says, when you put an irritant in an oyster, you get a what? Who knows what you get when you put an irritant in the oyster? You get a pearl. Yes. Whenever there's an irritant in the oyster protects itself and it becomes a pearl. So we got a pearl. Janetta Besh Cole came to Bennett and she said, okay, this place, I'm going to turn it around. And she did. We got cable on this campus, and that's how we got computers in the dormitories, and that's how you got that particular capability in your dorms. I can remember them digging up the campus, putting in cable so that all the residence halls could have that capability. She did that. She raised money. She renovated the parlors in the dormitory. She saw that that was done, and many other things that pulled Bennett up and made it even more distinguished than it already was. A lot of special people have come to this campus. Bill Clinton, Oprah. Yeah, she was here. And Stedman has been here too. Okay. Shirley Caesar. I came all the way back 1 year just to hear Count Basie and Joe Williams play for the college ball in the Student Union building. I came all the way back here to hear Ramsey Lewis and his jazz quartet play, and the modern jazz quartet. Bennett has exposed its students to the finest and the greatest. We were sitting in chapel one day, and we noticed a commotion in the balcony, and you weren't supposed to look around, but we had to look around. And it was the world heavyweight champion, Ezra Charles, who had come to Bennett to visit one of his friends. So we had a lot of people, a lot of distinguished people on this campus. Our next president was Julianne Malveaux, and you see her a lot on the BET network because she's an economist. And her motto was, I am on fire for Bennett College. And she lit up our building program, and just before she left, we got 5 buildings. The Honors Dorm, the Honors Dorm, the renovated intergenerational center, which we used to call the Children's House, the Wellness Complex, and this building. And of course, the Watkins family donated the Watkins Faculty Development House. But we had not had any new buildings on this campus in 20 years. And President Malveaux said, we're going to have buildings. And that's why we've got this building, her foresight and her drive and her determination to upgrade the physical facilities of this campus. How many of you walk the track behind the gym? Oh, no. Yes, hold them up high. 4 times around is a what? A mile. That's right. You can do something for yourself. Get out there. When you go around 4 times, you never know you've done it. You might hurt the first, second day. But you need to do that. Don't wait for somebody to tell you to get exercise. 4 or 5 of you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning? Yes, it's daylight then. No, it's not. But if you can't walk in the morning, walk in the afternoon. But it's there for you. Use it. Use it. And then when Malveaux left, we got our first Bennett Bell president, who is a classmate of Rosalind. That's her classmate. And Esther Terry came to us from Boston University, I believe. University of Massachusetts, thank you. And she was a dynamic, little bitty person, about this big. And she lit up this place because we had a bell for a president. and she did lots of wonderful things. Our next president was Rosalind Fuse Hall, and her focus was increasing the enrollment and trying to see if she could continue the existing progress that we were making. And our next president was Phyllis Worthy Dawkins, and now we have our new president, Suzanne Walsh. Bennett has a lot of traditions, and they're there for a reason. You've got a handout that says the Bennett Bees and the Bennett Ideal. Take a look at that, will you please? President and Mrs. Jones put this document together along with other faculty and staff because it makes us special. It makes a Bennett Belle, a Bennett woman special. We're good conversationalists. We can talk about more than just the weather. You ever go out on a date with someone and they don't have anything to talk about? Oh, yeah. Bennett women are courteous. Nothing bothers me more than to pass a student on campus and I say hello and she doesn't say anything. Now that rings my bell. That rings my bell. Courtesy is cheap. In your residence halls, I guess you say, I just passed her 5-10 minutes ago. That's not important. The important thing is that there's another human being with whom you are sharing that life space and you acknowledge that person with a smile, a nod, or what have you. Being neat, being friendly, and being socially appropriate. And that means not yelling out of the window in the residence hall, woo, 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 woo. And let him open the door for you. On the back, we talk about the Bennett Ideal. Now, these ladies have been in place since the Jones years. We're talking about in between 1926 and 1956. This is what we live by. We live by the bees, and we live by the Bennett Ideal. Bennett Belle is sincere. She's not flaky and phony. She is tolerant. Okay, give her space. She's cooperative. Can I help? She's poised. Doesn't have a mouthful of gum. And we've got to develop a new kind of etiquette that goes along with all the electronics that have become a part of our lives. There is an appropriate etiquette that goes along with the cell phone and all the other gadgets that you have. I've seen people being so rude. I don't want to hear your conversation. There is an etiquette to that, and you need to think about it. We are healthy. We're efficient. We're well balanced. We appreciate the beautiful. We're religious. And we are loyal. Let's move along. Honors Convocation, we appreciate and we honor academic achievements. The first one you will be eligible for will be in the spring. Spring Honors Convocation. Yes, white dresses. And you will receive your certificate of accomplishments. Senior Day, that's when you now have a junior sister. Do you have junior sisters yet? Haven't gotten them? All right. You will have, that's called your sister class. The first year class and the third year class are sister classes. And then next year, you will be sophomores and they will be seniors. Senior Day, you will robe them, just like I robed the young lady who was here. And she will wear that robe for significant events through graduation. And then you celebrate her with a dinner in the dining hall and all that good stuff. Because now she is really a senior, and she's getting ready to graduate. Getting ready to graduate. All right. Convocata Miss, you've had that celebration, and you were beautiful. You were beautiful. And then the casual white breakfast, you enjoyed that. And I know there's one song you already know. And what's that, the preference song? Have you learned that? Yes, some prefer to go to others. All right. We have graduate schools. We just don't help you get through college. We help you get a job. We help you get a job. I think 25 young ladies just went somewhere Monday. Went to South Carolina. Job hunting, internship hunting. We just don't put you out there and leave you out there to flounder on your own. Bennett will take you. Bennett has made you. Bennett has given you what you need to move forward and upward. In terms of social justice, we participated with the Jenna, loaded up a bus, went down there. We celebrated the sit-ins, and we did sit-ins. They'd come back to the campus the next day on the buses that the police department provided. Another group would be incarcerated the next day. Do you know those girls, not a one of them flunked the course? Not one. We had the highest academic achievement during that time that Bennett has ever had. You can't keep a bell down. Commencement. Commencement is outdoors on the quad, under that great big tree in front of chapel. And it begins with the wee ones at the generational center. They have their little stepping up. And then you have the middle college. And then you got us. And this is a picture on senior day in the chapel with the president. At that time was President Fuse Hall. And there you are, standing in line, commencement. And what's that on their arms? Who knows what it is? The hood. Because you're going to do what? You're going to hood the person in front of you. We had the first female governor of Bennett College for a commencement speaker one year. And there you are. We welcome you one by one, and we graduate you one by one, because at Bennett College, every student is important. We don't do anything en masse. We don't whoop the whole area, stand up, you now graduate. Whoop, you sit down. No. You came in, we welcomed you one by one, and when you graduate, we'll graduate you one by one. An individual, a person. Bennett gives special attention to every student. When I was a student here, President Jones knew every student. There were 450 of us. He knew us all by name. And he would stop you and he would say, Mary Ann, what is your purpose? You know what? You better come up with an answer. In other words, why are you here? And yes, I am the faculty person that they talk about that would go to the residence hall if you missed my class and get you out of bed, wait until you got your clothes on, and walk you back to my class. I love you. And you know why I did that? Because college is what? Expensive. And every day you sleep through a class that you could have gone to, that's money down the drain. And that's why I went to the rooms and got students up and made them come to class. I even got the COO's daughter up. Dr. Gwendolyn Sneed O'Neill, daughter slept my class, went over there and got her. That's outdoor commencement out on the quad. They're the Girl Scouts and petitions and Operation Door Knock. And I don't have time enough to talk about that, but that was a massive community registration effort where Bennett students were able to put more Negroes on the ballot, on the registration to vote than ever before in the history of Guilford County. Other people, Barbara Bush, Hazel O'Leary, Ruby Dee, and Ossie Davis. And we've got some bells, as the fellows say, walking in high cotton. Dr. Linda Brown, a noted author, Yvonne Johnson, who is now Mayor Pro Tem of Greensboro, but she was the first African-American mayor. Gladys Robinson, I think you have seen her on campus. And in the middle, Dr. Gwendolyn Sneed O'Neill, who is our COO. And then the person, Justice, that's the young lady who was the first black African-American district attorney in North Carolina. So, and the Talia, who is a research chemist. This is Miss Bennett College of 2017-2018. This girl came here with a lot of baggage. And to look at her and talk with her, you say, ain't no way in the world she gonna make it. But she did. She did. Because Bennett doesn't believe in failure. We are not gonna let you fail. You can try, but we are not gonna let you fail. You come so far by faith, and we're not going to drop the ball on you. Some of you came to St. Matthew's and worshiped at the new St. Matthew's. Some of you, I'm sure, will audition for the choir and become involved in social justice movements. And I spent a lot of time on the flagpole between classes yakking. We are heavy in research, still doing that. And that Bearden Gate, when you walk through it the last time, you tell yourself, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm glad to get away from here. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. And by the time you get to the chapel, you're boo-hooing. The first 4 graduates. Other scenes, yeah, we played hockey. We had a basketball team. We had modern dance, played archery. Yeah. If you want it, start asking for it. Yeah. Yeah. I played field hockey. And we threw javelins, too. Bennett bells are all over the world. These young ladies, one group's in Belgium, the other in South Korea. And there you are. Bennett alumna goes forth to meet the world. And I thank you. China. There are 6 of these in the series, and they were done by the engravers who engraved for the Queen of England. And it is on the back. It is on the back. The chapel and the library, and there are 4 others in the series. And I'll leave them up here for you to see. And then I have finished. But I can't finish without one thing, and that is to ring the bell and say thank you for being a great audience. Yeah, if you have any questions for Scarlette, she's available to answer any questions that you may have. Or any of the other alumni in the back. I was all over the place, I'm sorry. It was fantastic.
Hey, everybody in my class, make sure you sign in your role on the Moodle app or on the computer. And then we're going to be meeting at 4 if you want to get some help on getting caught up on work. And then if you're new to my class, then you got switched over sections, hang back for a minute.
Ladies, Miss Doan has Dr. Graves's role. So if you're in it's right here at the table if you're in Dr. Graves's class.
We cheer for me and Tisa. Talk to the president, maybe we'll get someone else as far as more, yeah. So we had a basketball team. Start something. I'll go ahead there.
Yeah. We have a soccer field out there. Maybe a soccer team. Or like a tennis team, people who play tennis. There's a tennis court right there. We have people that do that.
I'm still working on
Y'all
it.
can do it.
Yeah, we need some energy. We need energy. We need like.
Okay, wait a sec, because I gotta get you added on to the roll. So just hang, are y'all lifting? It's gonna be a little one, I gotta put you, y'all new from this past